Welcome to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs, where you'll find real stories, practical strategies, and the mindset shifts you need for entrepreneurship. If you've ever felt like midlife was too late to launch a business, write a book, or chase a dream, think again. I'm Lynette Turner, your host, and I'm bringing you inspiring conversations and practical tips to help nudge you forward and keep growing in midlife. So let's jump in. Welcome, Ashley Rocha, to Midlife Women Entrepreneurs. I'm excited to have you here today. You founded a company called Ladywell. We're going to get into all of that today. Your journey of starting this business, what it is, who it's for, and all the great benefits. So before we get started, I want to hand the floor over to you. You can give us a little bit of a background and we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I am the founder and CEO of Ladywell. And Ladywell is a women's health supplement company geared towards helping you have healthy hormones at every stage of life, from your reproductive years all the way through menopause, really through puberty to menopause. I began it on my own personal hormonal health struggles that I had for many decades, and I finally recovered from, and I wanted to bring those solutions to market. Basically, what happened to me is I had PMDD, and I really didn't know I had it for 2 decades. But what PMDD is it's like PMS on steroids. It's really hyped up emotional symptoms. So really big mood swings, easy to anger. I had really painful periods as well. So it's the traditional symptoms of PMS. I was taking 20 Advil a day during my period. And whenever I went to the doctor during those years, this was my 20s and early 30s, they would just prescribe hormonal birth control or SSRIs. And those really just would mask the problem. And they weren't right for me. They didn't sit well. And I knew I wasn't depressed because, my period came and my symptoms went away. And so I just really struggled with PMDD for 2 decades. It affected my relationships, my productivity at work, really affects everything when you have your period every 28 days. That's 1 week a month that's taken down. And it was my mid-30s. I was trying to get pregnant and I was slow to get pregnant. And when you really want a baby, you start making big changes about your life. So I looked to my health and my fertility and my hormones. I knew intuitively something had not been right because of the PMS I've been having my whole life, like the really severe PMS. So I worked with a naturopathic doctor. I'm a trained herbalist. I was more focused on the skincare, outside the body, plant medicine, but I knew the power of the plant worlds. I started working with I'm an herbalist. I started working with a naturopathic doctor, and together we found all these amazing supplements, herbs, plants, functional mushrooms. I changed my diet, lifestyle, and really discovered I was estrogen dominant, these things that I wasn't tested for by my mainstream doctor. And I was able to get rid of my PMDD within 6 months. So my life changed dramatically during that time. I was living such a better, more fulfilling life without these really hormonal symptoms that were debilitating at times. And then I easily got pregnant eventually and I have 2 baby boys now. And my life was just so much improved when I got a hold on my hormonal health and even understood what my cycle was about, what my hormones even were. Nobody was educating me along that process. Nobody talked about hormones. Nobody told me that PMS isn't normal. So I didn't know any of that stuff. And I didn't know that there were solutions out there to help you manage your hormonal health. And so that's why I wanted to bring Ladywell to market, because I found something that worked so well for me. And I started talking to my friends about this. And then I realized there were such common issues that we all have. And I started giving these supplements to my friends and they worked for them and changed their lives. And we all have these struggles that we don't necessarily talk about that much, but they're real and they affect you.
I love that background of that story because there's so much in that story that even just carries forward into midlife and into perimenopause and into menopause. The one thing you said was they were trying to diagnose you with depression. And I think to myself, yeah, I feel like this whole gaslighting kind of thing happens, when we're going to doctors who are misinformed, who aren't looking at alternative ways of healing yourself. And so for you to have that tenacity and say, listen, I'm just going to take control of myself. And then you found a group of pilot users and your friends who are also giving you very similar results, which is absolutely amazing. What was that moment when you said, well, I think I'm just going to bring this to everybody else?
Yeah. Well, I worked in natural supplements, food industry prior to starting Ladywell. So I always knew I wanted to do something on my own and start my own brand. And like I said, I was more focused on skincare. I thought that was going to be the route I took. But once I started using these supplements, and this wasn't my goal to create a supplement company necessarily, but once I found this, I knew that I needed to get this out there to other people and spread this message. And also it was, the conversation on hormonal health has been changing over the last several years. People are talking about it a lot more, and women's health in general is getting a lot more attention. That's amazing. And really, when I started formulating this and working on this, that conversation really hasn't been in the spotlight yet. Nobody was really talking about it. So it felt even more pressing to me then because it was so, I think, disturbing to me that like PMS is finding that information that PMS isn't natural, isn't normal, that you don't need to have it. That was shocking to me. And I had to live so many years in this hormonal like jail of this monthly cycle that I could have really saved myself so much struggles. And I mean, this was my life mission and, probably what I was meant to be doing. So that led me to this point. So I can't say that that struggle was all for nothing, but I really just didn't want other women to have to put up with that. And I wanted the future, our daughters, when they go through puberty, I want them to have the information and them not to struggle with painful cycles, infertility. I want the future generations of women to have access to these things.
I wish I would have had you 20, 30 years ago, kind of thing. So what was the biggest challenge then in taking sort of this idea into an actual product on the shelves?
Yeah, there's so many challenges that come with starting a company. The biggest one is funding, right? It's not cheap to start any kind of company. If you have enough money and you can do anything in the world. So it is about funding a company, and I bootstrapped the company. So it was about making really smart decisions with the capital I had. But I want to create something that is really efficacious, that's based in science, that's studied, and that is inspired by nature, uses natural substances, is clean. So I'm really obsessed with like a toxics-free life and endocrine disruptors and eating organic and being as clean as possible. I've always been obsessed with that. That's always been my focus. And so I really wanted to make sure that where I was sourcing my ingredients from was really clean sources, and the final product was exactly what was on the label, and that the ingredients were all, toxin free. So that is a challenge because you need to make sure that you're really diligent with the sourcing, the co-manufacturers that you're working with, and just really be on top of that. And then when it comes to efficacy, I wanted to bring together a medical board of really smart women across the medical field. So we have a lot of different perspectives. I think it's important that we look at our health from an Eastern perspective and a Western perspective. So traditional medicine in America and in the wisdom of Eastern medicine, there's a lot of herbs, adaptogens, functional mushrooms that you find in Eastern medicine that aren't necessarily used in the United States, but are really beneficial for women's health. So I found a lot of doctors with different backgrounds and brought them together to create the Ladywell Medical Board, and they help formulate our products to make sure they're efficacious. They have a lot of background in helping women on different phases of their lives. So I have a fertility focused doctor. I have a woman that's focused more on perimenopause years. And so they have different focuses, and so they can help me formulate products that are really targeted to these life stages we're at. And bringing together this diverse group of women allows me to have a lot of different perspectives and opinions when it comes to formulation, because they work with clients. They have been working with clients for, 20 plus years. So I have real life examples and real life data to back up what they recommend. And, some things they have noticed work for some women, don't work for another women. And, they can give me like real life scenarios and real life information on these formulas and ingredients. And I also am choosing ingredients that are clinically backed. So the reality is that there's not a ton of money in testing just ingredients in general, unless you're a pharmaceutical company and you're trying to sell, a drug. You'll pour a lot of money into creating clinical studies for those. But something like, say, ashwagandha, there are clinical studies. And so we find those when we're choosing the ingredients in our formulas. But it's not there's not a ton of data around just herbs and adaptogens in general. So we really try to find the ones that have been tested, that back up what we're trying to do. Because at the end of the day, the point of these supplements is to create, the result that we're going for. So they need to be effective, they need to be efficacious, and that's really important. So that's really the first piece that I had to tackle was, how can I make these supplements, make sure that they're working in doing what I say they're doing.
I want to talk about the ingredients, and then I want to talk about your medical board. The fact that you have an all-woman medical board. For the longest time, all of my doctors have always been male up until even like the past 5 years, I think. And so I used to always think when they would push back on, let's say, HRT or anything like that, I would think, well, why? Like, why are you pushing back? And so I love that you've got this medical board is actually experience in the symptoms themselves in most cases. When you say different types of ingredients like ashwagandha, I think you've got some other kinds of ingredients, chasteberry, and maybe some other types of ingredients in them. How do you know, well, which ingredients to go for first? And then how do you know how to blend those ingredients in a way? And then my third question on that is some of those ingredients can be just taken on their own, but would they have the same effect if not mixed together?
Yeah, so those are all great questions. When you are formulating, you definitely want to make sure that the herbals and ingredients that you're choosing work well together. There is something called herbal synergy, which is what you're pointed to. And this refers to the concept of that combining multiple herbs can enhance their individual effects, leading to a greater overall balance and benefit that you don't get when you're just taking one herb by itself. And this is based on the idea that different plant compounds can support each other's actions. Like, for example, one increases absorption or potency of another one, balance of potential side effects. You would take calming herbs in a blend with energizing ones for a smoother effect. So things will counteract each other. If an herb has a side effect of maybe like making you feel too energized, then you want to bring in a calming one. And then you can target multiple symptoms in the body at once for more holistic results. And that's really what I want to do. I want to do all these things, but my formulas are really holistic and comprehensive. Because when I was piecing together my own protocol at the very beginning of my journey to fix myself, I was taking like so many different tinctures. It was almost felt like I was taking 20 things a day. If you looked at my medicine cabinet, it was complex, and I knew it wasn't sustainable. And I don't think it's sustainable for any woman to be doing these like really complex protocols. So I wanted to create formulas that were really comprehensive and brought a lot into one formula. So that's why I bring in herbs, adaptogens, functional mushrooms, amino acids, vitamins, and try to create formulas that work really hard and target multiple symptoms at once to have a better holistic effect on the body. And I think that's a really important piece when it comes to formulation. A lot of brands you'll see out there will just take a few herbs, or maybe a vitamin, throw it together and call it a day. And that's fine. Those things can help you, I'm sure, on some level, but you want to help yourself the best possible way. And why brands do that is because it's cheaper. It does cost a lot to make really high quality supplements, costs a lot to source these ingredients, and using more ingredients is more costly because you have to source all these ingredients. So it is more expensive to create a better quality supplement. That's why a lot of brands don't do it, because at the end of the day, they're trying to make profits. And there is people only want to pay what they want to pay. So there's a give and take there, and figuring out what makes sense for formulation and creating something efficacious that people also will buy at the end of the day.
Okay, so having said that, I was thinking about microdosing of certain mushrooms that I've started to take. A friend of mine introduced me to them. And so I went on the website and I was trying to determine what was the difference and where's this stuff being sourced? What are the biggest red flags or marketing gimmicks women should sort of avoid when shopping for supplements, when it comes just down to supplements? And with yours, do you have to be careful what you're taking outside of the Ladywell supplements as well?
Yeah, I'll answer that last one first. I think I try to create formulas that you just have to take Ladywell and don't have to piece together a lot of other things. You do want to be careful when you're combining a lot of supplements. But I mean, you can take a probiotic and then take a hormone balance supplement and take a multivitamin. You just don't want to take like several hormone balancing supplements because you don't necessarily know how they will work together. You don't want to take too much of one thing. And that's why I create formulas that are really holistic and comprehensive, so you don't have to stack all these supplements. Supplement companies do want you to buy many other supplements and start stacking them, because that's when they make their money. Yeah, they're like, okay, you need this hormone balancing one, then you also need this one other one for hormone balancing and this other one. And it depends on what your symptoms are and what you're trying to accomplish. So there are reasons for that. But yeah, you do want to be mindful that you're not taking too many supplements. Like, you shouldn't be I mean, some days you'll be taking a whole handful of supplements, but it really shouldn't be two whole handfuls, I would say, as a rule of thumb. Maybe just one. It should fit in the palm of your hand. I would say a red flag is too good to be true pricing. I spoke a little bit about this earlier. If a supplement is super cheap, it might be cutting corners with low quality or synthetic ingredients or in skipping testing altogether. So with Ladywell, we make sure that we're sourcing tested ingredients to begin with, and then we test after production to make sure what we're saying on the label is actually in the bottle, that is free of, gluten, molds, whatever the claims are. You want to make sure that there are claims and that those things are true. There's something called third-party testing where third-party labs can test your product for contaminants and potency. And that's a really nice way to make sure that your supplements are clean and efficacious and pure.
So let's go back to the business side of it. Obviously, there's lots of challenges, as you had mentioned, like trying to take something from idea to actual product on the shelves, regardless if it's a supplement. I think there can be a lot of skepticism, I guess, around herbal medicines and supplements. How did you pitch it? And I'm sure there were moments of when you doubted yourself or even the viability of Ladywell. How did you move through all of that? And when somebody was challenging you back, I'm sure they had tons of questions and there might have been some pushback. There's obviously this sort of gremlin that gets in your head, gets into everybody's head, especially now you're trying to pitch this product. So how did you sort of move through all of that?
Yeah, I mean, there's always imposter syndrome that women deal with. I mean, even men, I'm sure. Self-doubt. It's hard to begin a business. You always get no's and pushback all the time. And there are natural solutions. I think there is a lot of skepticism. For a long time, people think like only pharmaceuticals work. And that's basically very American and what they want us to think because that's how they make their money. And it's really not true. They're natural solutions. A lot of pharmaceuticals are based on natural things. They're just turned into pharmaceuticals. So natural solutions do work. They can take longer to kick in. For example, like adaptogens I say you should take a supplement for 3 months to feel the full effects and really judge it. It's not an Advil. You're not going to take it and your headache's going to go away immediately. Natural solutions are gentler and they need more time. And so that you should treat them like so, but they won't have sometimes those nasty side effects that pharmaceuticals will have. And pharmaceuticals are really just a lot of the times treating symptoms and masking the root cause. And really what you want to be treating is the root cause and figuring out what the root cause is, what's going on with your health. That's a really important thing that we just gloss over a lot of times when in modern American medicine, we are just looking at the symptoms and not, preventing cancer before cancer starts, for example. So I think that's the most important thing.
I'm just thinking somebody else that might be listening to the podcast and they're thinking, actually I have a product, maybe it's a makeup thing or whatever, and I want to get it out there. Where do I even begin to start to build that community of support? Because that's really what that medical advisory board is. I mean, I think everybody should have some sort of board. It doesn't have to be, this, 10 or 15 people. It could just be a couple of people that you're constantly looking to get advisement and direction.
Yeah.
How did you start?
Well, the women that selected want to help other women. They're in the business of helping other women. And so it wasn't a hard sell to have them join the board because at the end of the day, it's just trying to move the needle in women's health. And that's what they're trying to do all the time. And so, I did actually reach out to a lot of different women and did get a lot of not no's, but non-responses. Because when you're reaching out to women that are practicing doctors, they're really busy and they're helping clients or patients and it's hard to find their personal emails. They're not they're not in the business of trying to give away their personal emails to become board members. That's not their goal. So that it was hard to just find these women and get in contact with them in the first place. So that is the challenge. But once I could actually talk to them and it was easy to have that conversation. The best way to go about it for somebody who's trying to start a company is by doing it through connections, right? It's easy to find women that know somebody through somebody else. The first woman I reached out to, I saw her at a panel and I found her email and I reached out to her about the panel and I began the conversation that way. And then she referred me to somebody else. And then I think all of my medical board people were referred by somebody. So it was through connections. I did do a lot of other cold outreach to women I thought were just really wonderful in the space. But once again, I didn't get responses and it was just hard to really even find their email. So I don't even know if they really got the message, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I like that. I like that sort of, if you're going to be in this business, be in the business and start going to these conferences and stuff, because you're right. Like the panel is right there and they are typically giving their email addresses out. So, and even if you can kind of get up there and, just say hello and just pitch a little bit about what you're doing, you're right. That's exactly the way to go.
And I do want to say I am an introvert and very shy. So going out and, I would say to anybody out there who wanted to start a business, if you feel like you can't do it because you're too shy or an introvert, or whatever, you just have to step outside your comfort zone. And the thing about starting businesses is you're going to be doing a lot of things that you necessarily didn't want to do, didn't know you could do, never pictured yourself doing, but you will do. You'll fall into these roles and have to, try a different outfit on and be a different person. And you'd be amazed at what you can do if you really just try to do it.
Just move aside, gremlin. Just move it aside and just go for it.
Yes.
Push through it. Okay, so you're definitely competing in a very noisy wellness space, and I think it's just going to get even more so. How did you differentiate yourself?
Yeah, so I began Ladywell I started formulating when there weren't a lot of brands out there. There might have been like one or two, and they're like, more old school, just herbals. So I didn't really begin it like when there was so much noise. But what really differentiates our brand is our formulas and creating these really like quality, comprehensive formulas that bring in Eastern and Western medicine. And when it comes to marketing, it is a hard thing to convey your differentiation, right? Because there is a lot of noise. There's a lot of brands with a ton of money that are in Target, for example, that like just have money to spend on marketing, but their formulas might not be as good as mine, but it's really hard to communicate that to people because people just like want sound bites really fast, and it takes a lot of information to understand like what is a good formula and what makes something efficacious. So that is a challenge I face, is communicating the differentiator and showing how much better I am than people. But once people start taking their supplements, they'll feel the effects, but it's like I have to get those supplements in their hands in the first place. So that's the challenge I face, is communicating our differentiator of how much better our formulas are, because they truly are better quality, better formulations. Now, they are expensive for me to make, and I don't cut corners. I think that's the most important thing to me, is to create these really efficacious things, because I'm not going into this business to create, I'm not trying to be Nestle and just steal people's money. Like, I want to create real change in the world. And yes, it's definitely a challenge.
Okay, so the next question for that is then, so what is your product marketing strategy, your sales strategy? I kind of go right to like just that whole story there. I think, oh, I wonder, will she eventually do this retail marketing strategy? Because I find that that's often those types of herbs that you're talking about, or those types of supplements, or those types of things do come, if they're not on a store shelf, then they kind of start to formulate into that retail marketing strategy. So what is your strategy?
Yeah, our strategy is always changing. We're a small brand. I think one day the multi-level marketing type of thing could be a way to do it. But right now, we're just really focused on high-level brand awareness through meta ads, through doing events, more organic outreach, things like Pinterest. That's a great way to reach people. YouTube, create education. Really, there's a lack of education in hormonal health in general. People don't know anything about their hormones. They don't know what these symptoms are about, why they need supplements. So I think that the struggle is the educational piece. And once people understand things, then they can understand why they need a supplement, and, even understand that, I don't have to have PMS, or like I don't have to go get IVF right now. I can try to treat my fertility naturally and hopefully just get pregnant naturally without spending $30,000 on IVF, right? So education is a big piece, and that's what we try to push through our organic social, and we do a lot of blog posts, so we're building SEO that way. But we do plan on going in retail in the future. Retail is expensive to do. You have to have a lot of money to go into retail, because you are not getting the payment from those companies until maybe all the products sold sometimes, and then you have to pay to get on the shelves. It's just an expensive endeavor, and I do think you need more of a solid brand awareness foundation before you go into retail for that to be effective. So that will be our phase next year, is the retail push. But right now we're just focusing on our D2C. We're doing really, really well on Amazon, and people shop for supplements there. And you need to go where the people shop. And we have done influencer outreach type of things, like micro influencers. I don't know if it's really hard to measure how well and how successful those things are. I think people are maybe a little bit tired of hearing about influencers talk about products that they know they're being paid to talk about. So I'm not sure that's the right route at the moment in terms of how marketing works in the world, but we have explored that. And I wouldn't say that moved the needle significantly. It's more,
Yeah,
I think the educational piece is the most successful thing and important thing, because that's what we need anyways.
exactly, exactly. So where are you at then from a perimenopausal or even a menopausal sort of sense? Like I think about, like midlife women entrepreneurs. So I think about my listeners and I think, okay, well, I've kind of moved on from the PMS side of things. And now I'm either in perimenopause or menopause.
Yeah, no, we're definitely in the perimenopause space right now. And that's a big focus. I think I would say it's probably a 50-50 split between people focused on fertility and people focused on perimenopause. People focus on PMS as a smaller portion. So I probably shouldn't have been focusing on that the whole time, but that was my personal journey. I am now in perimenopause though. I am 40, so I'm now in that journey. But yeah, it's a struggle for a lot of women. And I think in terms of starting my business, perimenopause, there's so much need when it comes to perimenopause, and people know that they need it because once you are a certain way your whole life and you hit those years of perimenopause and you start getting this brain fog, trouble sleeping, you really change and you can feel it. And there are solutions out there, luckily, that can help with perimenopause. And so our daily hormone balance is amazing for people in perimenopause. And we get such positive reviews from women in those ages and range of life. And then we're also launching something called our perimenome, and that's going to be specifically more targeted to perimenopause. It can layer on top of the daily hormone balance. There's so much that goes on during perimenopause and so many symptoms, and it's so individual. So we are creating another supplement that's even more targeted to things like hot flashes, mood swings, irritability, sleep disturbances during those times. And that'll be coming out in the summer. And so we're super excited about that because once again, there's such a need for perimenopause supplements and help during those times. And women at that age are willing to take steps to fix themselves. Where people in their 20s and they have PMS, they might not, like, yeah, whatever. They might not even know they have it and they're just told it's normal. Perimenopause, you know that there's something going on because you can feel it in your body and it's dropped.
Absolutely. So how will you handle that then? Like people are different. And so would you have one supplement that is sort of a preventative, philosophy as well as fix what you've got kind of thing?
Well, that's our daily hormone balance is preventative and fix what you got. These things will help you, balance your hormones and maintain your hormone health, and adaptogens will always be helpful for things like stress, sleep. These things are always going to be present in our life. We always need to have good sleep, and if you are living stress-free, that's great, but most people are not. So these will be really helpful for you, whether you really feel like you have a problem. It'd be great for prevention. And we should all be doing prevention. We shouldn't wait till things snowball and we're like out of control. But that's really where most of us do. We wait until things are just so bad and then we try to fix it, unfortunately. So, I mean, I think it's great that you try to fix it if you're in a really bad state. So either way is great, but these formulas will help you both ways.
That's great. And I do believe in the preventative and just kind of getting on top of it. And I don't know, I think so many women out there today need to, if your doctor is not supportive in your journey, I think you got to find a new doctor. And I think you got to start like you did to take the health in your own hands. I think we should have always been that way. So yeah, so I think you're doing a great thing. So what's next for Ladywell?
Well, like I said, we have our perimenopause supplement launching this summer. We are also formulating a creatine. Creatine is super important. As we all can really, as women, benefit from that, especially in those perimenopause years when you're losing your muscle mass. So we're always working on creating new formulas and for what we need in life. I really dream about creating a a puberty supplement for little women going through puberty. I think that's a really big need out there. And so that's on our radar as well. We'll be doing that soon. And so I really just want to grow our catalog to help more women at these different life stages that we're at, because we're all on a hormonal health journey, so whether we like it or not. And along the way, we'll have different needs and different things that come up, and just having support during that time is really important.
I totally agree. And I kind of want to take a step to the creatine side of it, because I think that's been such a representative supplement. I think when people think about creatine, they think about bodybuilder, right? Oh my God. And women, I don't want to get too big, but there are different types of creatine out there. I did take a formula that I did feel a bit bloated, maybe sort of water retention kind of thing. And then kind of, continue to do more research and realized, well, there needed to be this certain creapure in it. And so I ended up switching. But, I think at the end of the day too, when I think about these supplements, I don't know if I can really notice a difference taking them, but I notice them when I haven't been taking them.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. It is hard to sell a supplement sometimes when it's not supposed to make a immediate.
Like an Advil, you said,
Yeah.
Like taking an Advil. Okay, now my headache's gone. But like you said, it takes about 3 months to build up. And then I think you kind of forget.
Once you feel better, you forget that you felt bad in the first place. But things like our daily hormone balance, we get reviews all the time saying my cycle is so much easier, my mood swings are so much better. So that specific supplement that we have really does move the needle in terms of how you feel, and it's meant to do that. It's meant to, we've gotten reviews from husbands that are like, my wife was so much easier to be around during her period. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So things like that. People say, why do I need a multivitamin? You should get all your nutrients through food. And hypothetically, yes, but the reality is in America, maybe other parts of the world, our food system is broken. Not all our food is as nutrient dense as it can be. And the reality is all our diets aren't as great as they should be. We might think we're eating a better diet than we are a lot of the times. A few days ago, there was one day I didn't eat a single fruit or vegetable. I was just so busy. So having a multivitamin or a prenatal, I take a prenatal still because I think they're just better for you because I'm still in my postpartum era right now. Yeah, there's just, the reality is you can't get everything in that you should on a daily basis. And supplements are really meant to just support you and fill in those nutritional gaps. And they're like health hacks to help you just support. The term supplement, they should be used as a supplement, right? You shouldn't eat McDonald's and then taking a supplement and thinking everything's going to be great. But they're really going to be supporting you and filling in those gaps where you can. And really, we can't get ashwagandha in our daily diet, right? We're not taking that, eating that as a food. So supplementing with that is intensely helpful because it's adaptogen and we don't really necessarily get those in our foods. So, supplements are very beneficial in those ways.
So where does somebody go now to find Ladywell?
Yeah, you can find us on our website, getladywell.com. You can find us on Amazon too if you shop there. But our website, we have a great subscription model. When we create a promo code for your audience, so Midlife 20, you get 20% off any supplement. And follow us on social media too, because we're on all the platforms. Get Ladywell is our handle. And we like to post education around hormones. We think it's really important about your different life stages, whether you're in perimenopause, whether you're fertility, motherhood. Many women go through that, has a lot of hormonal ups and downs to it. So I think it's important to be on top of your hormones during that time as well. So we love to post education, so follow us on our socials.
Ashley, you're wonderful. And thank you for the Midlife 20 promo code. I'm sure there'll be lots of people that use that code. So, all right. Well, I'm going to be watching what you do over the next few years. So good luck with everything. And thank you again for being on the show today.
No problem. Thank you for having me.
Okay, it's Annette. Thanks for listening today. Please like and subscribe. And if there's somebody out there that you think could benefit from the episode, give it a share. Midlife is your time, so go get it.